Good evening. Welcome to On the Line. And I'm your host, Britton NewOne Carter. I got to tell you, I'm glad to be back. We had a little bit of a hiatus here, and so we missed you guys. And we're glad to be back on the set. Glad to kick off our sophomore season tonight. So we promise you a great second season, so stay tuned. Before I go any further, of course, Namani will get on me if I don't remind you how to stay in touch with us. So you can contact us on Facebook and Twitter at On the Line TV Show. And you can also reach out and kick it with us on Twitter as well at hashtag Watch On the Line. Before I go any further, I'll be remiss if I don't remind you of this. It's a great event coming up. It kicks off tomorrow. And so by the time you see this show, it would have already kicked off, but there's going to be other events surrounding this great effort. And what I'm talking about is the effort that's headed by Mazan Anderson and Sarah Green. And it's the LIM Project. And what they have going on is a garment drive. So they're going to be down at the brew house tomorrow. They're going to kick the doors off. They're going to have some great entertainment. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to get some undergarments for the youth, for our little kids who are children of parents who have lost their lives to senseless violence, gun violence, or any violence. So we have some great people out there. And I myself, I went over tonight and, they've been making jokes with me about this doesn't fit me. And no, it doesn't, but it will fit a little one. So I got some socks and, a little onesie, or was this a onesie, Namani? Okay, and some little socks here, So I can't feed the whole village, or I can't clothe the whole village. But one thing for certain, too, for sure, I think I got enough money to be able to buy something for one of them babies that I proclaim that I love. And I love all my children. I wish that I could do something for everyone in our village, but if we all pitch in, if we all give a hand, we can do that. I'd like to let you know that you can contact Mazan to drop some things off. She'll give you more information. The contact number for Mazan will be 513-780-2079. That's 513-780-2079. And you can also reach out to your boy, Britton NewOne Carter. And you can call me at 513-384-7445, 384-7445. And we'll like to have you come on the show and bring them, So, we'll have a surprise guest come in. And you guys just come on in and drop that stuff off and be a guest of On the Line, okay? Show me what you're really working with and put it on the line. Tonight we have, as always, I keep very special guests, but this is a really, really special guest. Someone that I had an opportunity of meeting some years ago. Tonight's guest, she's an activist. She's a community leader. Now, I met her during an event where I volunteered. I was volunteering with the Cincinnati Human Relations Commission, and they had an event that marked violence. Actually, they were talking about violence and victims' rights. So this was appealing to me since I had been a victim myself of a criminal act. And so they were talking about trauma, and I really became interested because I'm a victim of trauma. And one of the things that it allowed me to do, it allowed me at that night to deal with some of my demons. Many of you have heard my story. I was molested twice by the age of 8, and I was the only man on the panel, right? So there was a woman there that I met, Miss Lilian Carr, and she kind of comforted me and she kind of eased my little nervousness, and we went on to become friends, and we did a segment thereafter that dealt with the same subject matter. And Lilian Carr is a great activist. She's a great community leader. So tonight, without further delay, I'd like to thank you for being here. Lilian, thank you for being on the line.
Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So let's hop right into it. I know you. Many people in our community know you, but there's some that doesn't know who Lilian Carr really is. So why don't you tell us about Lilian Carr?
Well, really, it's not a lot to say. I've been around. I don't want to say how long, but I've been around for a long time, and most of the time, I've been. I wouldn't call it an activist, more of a caregiver, more of a person that's there to listen. As Britton said, you know, he had a story and he was feeling a little down, and I was there to hold his hand and just prompt him to go on with it. And that's been my life. Even as a kid, I thought at one time that I might want to be a nurse, and I did go to nursing school.
Okay.
However, that wasn't cut out for me. So I've been involved in drug awareness, pregnancy prevention, and now I'm involved in victims advocate.
Okay, great. Now let me ask you this: how and what allowed you to become interested? What promoted that interest into victims' rights?
Well, like you, I am also a victim. I'm a victim of robbery and abuse. When I was I guess about 19 years old, a guy robbed me at gunpoint. He put the gun up to my forehead and threatened to shoot me, kill me actually. And he took my skirt off and threw it and made me take my shoes off, and he threw the shoes, and he didn't actually shoot me. Just the threat, which made me so angry because
Absolutely.
I just, at the time I felt helpless.
Absolutely.
And so he ran, and after he ran away, I had to go and find my clothes and put them on and go home. But after I got home, I was just, I felt helpless, and I kept thinking there should have been something that I could have done. And of course, there was no one that I could talk to, or if I did talk to someone, they didn't understand. They would say things like, well, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that, which, pointless. And so I think that might have been the start of my advocacy with victims.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier on you had some work with drug addiction and that type of thing. I know we were talking before the show began, and we were talking about some of your startup where you worked at. And you mentioned that you worked with CCHB?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I worked at CCHB, and I actually, I got my start at Talbot House. They used to have a little house over on Vine Street, and it's still there, but I think that Talbot House is back in that area on Vine Street and over the Rhine. But it was a house called the Badana House, and they housed men and women as residents there. And so that's where I got my first start. I'm trying to think, what's the guy's name? Can't really remember his name, but that was my first start as far as substance abuse was concerned.
Great. Now, I'd like to ask you, is there, what's the mission actually of the victims of crime? What's you guys' mission statement? How many offices? And let me kind of slow down, because I want you to get all of these questions, and it'd be unfair just to shotgun blast you. But I need to know, how many offices do you all have in the Cincinnati area? Are they in all our communities, or? No.
I think the Talbot House has a Victims of Crime service. Seven Hills Neighborhood House has a Victims of Crime service. Women Helping Women is theirs is more curtailed to women of domestic violence, but it's still sort of an advocacy agency. and there's the YWCA that they work with women of abuse as well. So there are various agencies around the city of Cincinnati, and we're all pretty much funded by the state of Ohio. Mike DeWine, the Attorney General's office, funds that program. And the money comes from fines.
Okay.
Yeah, when they find a perpetrator or an assailant, then the money is stockpiled, and so there is money that's available to victims of crime, and I believe it's up to about $50,000.
Wow.
And I bet you didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that. And what else I don't know is the criteria for which you're awarded this. Obviously, you have to be a victim of a crime. That's obvious. But what's the criteria? I've heard often that some people aren't awarded this money. In some cases, it may be because they had felonies in the past or some other criminal contact themselves. But does that preclude them from being victims?
A victim is a victim. And I mean, there's been a lot of lobbying around that for years. Right. So far, there hasn't been any movement. Seven Hills Neighborhood House was recently awarded a grant from the Attorney General's office for trauma center.
Right.
And within that trauma center, we can work with felons and people who have committed crimes, and they may have misdemeanors as well. And they will not be awarded any money. And the money is like for funeral expenses, hospital expenses, right. Time off, they miss from work, or if you had a business and you were unable to to carry out your business, and you may have to hire somebody to take care of that or do that business for you. Then, I mean, if you can, when you're dealing with your bureaucracy, right. You've got to cross every T and dot every I and make sure you have all of your paperwork, and if you can prove it.
Right. And forgive me, but isn't that one of the biggest problems in this society, in our community, is that the scales are somewhat unbalanced, and who benefits from one area may not benefit from the other area? Does it say that I'm less worthy of compensation, of help? Because if I'm a parent, and I am, and if something, Lord forbid, something happens to my child or my grandchild, and being someone that has had a history, criminal history, then what you're telling me is that I may not be awarded compensation or any assistance based on the fact that I had a criminal past. How fair is that? I mean,
I don't think that's very fair.
I don't think so.
And I argue that.
I don't think so. And furthermore, doesn't that, not to cut you off, but, this is on the line. Mm-hmm. And, and I got to be honest, it struck a chord with me, because what I hear in our community is a lot of disenchantment as to what's fair and what's unfair. And when things such as a child's life is being taken, oftentimes, the parent may feel as though they have to take matters, or a family member, that they may have to take matters in their own hand because they're getting no justice. They can't even get the help to bury their loved one, let alone to actually apprehend the perpetrator. And that's just something that just kind of personally, from a personal standpoint, I mean, I have to voice that, like I said, it's on the line, and I got to kick it on the line because these are the things that we talk about around our kitchen table, or, when we're in restaurants and we voice how disenchanted we are about things that are going on in our community. Well, this is an opportunity to say that on television and get that out there.
Just had to say that, didn't you?
I just had to.
Just had to bring that up. And fortunately, it's a bone of contention with me and a lot of other people. But there is a saving grace.
Okay.
And that grace is 5 to 7 year period.
Okay.
So if the perpetrator hasn't committed a crime within, or if the felony is 5 to 7 years old, then there is a chance that they will be awarded, or the family will be. I think the sad part is that the family is penalized.
Right.
And I
Right.
mean, the parent, they didn't do anything. They didn't commit a crime, and the son or daughter or whomever just say was murdered, and they're a victim.
Right.
So they penalize the family, and what about if there's an offspring?
Mm.
So it's still being talked about. It's still being discussed, and like I said, there hasn't been any movement on that for years.
Okay, well, I'll let that dog's tail
Yeah,
go.
thank you.
You know what I'm saying? But I will do so in saying that, we hear a lot about second chances. I'm an advocate of second, third, fourth, fifth chances. We never know when a person's life would be turned around, redirected, and what contribution that person will have to our community and to society as a whole. So stay down with your people, and just believe in our community. Believe in the righteousness of people. There's some in everybody. How difficult is it to face the mothers of families of those that have lost their children to gun violence? How difficult has that has to be for you as a mother?
That's very, very, very difficult. But I have something. I don't know. It's not me. I'm just the messenger, and a bigger powers put it in me, and sometimes I surprise myself because I have so much empathy, and I can just sympathize with the parent. And I've had people come to my office very angry, and I've had people that were just down.
Right.
But by the time they leave me, they're feeling a lot different.
Right.
I won't say they're feeling better, but they are feeling different, and I don't like to pat myself on the back because I know it isn't me. It's something that's innate, or something that's been, like I said, a high power that comes over me, and I'm able to work with these people.
Well, I beg to differ, and I think it is something in you, and I think it was placed there by a power greater than us. And sometimes we get missions. We get appointed to missions, and this may happen to be yours. And on that note, I know it has to be difficult to really separate your the personal part from the job. Taking some of these tragedies home with you has to be a tremendous burden. Can you speak to that?
Yes, and even worse is when it's been someone very close to you, or someone that you know, or or family member. That's when it really, really hits home. But it helps make me a stronger person, and it also helps me be a different and a better advocate, and go out there really fighting for people, because we also go to court and advocate with the judicial system with these
Okay.
people. And that's really bad because a lot of them have never been in court before. They have no idea what that process is like. And when they bring out the photographs or just talk about, especially the prosecutors, and it's just, it's not a good feeling. So we have to prepare the families for the court, and pretty much I can be a spokesperson for
Right.
them.
Right, and I'm quite sure that it's equally as traumatizing on the flip side when you go to court and the perpetrator of the crime is someone that you mentored or you saw. We're talking about the Seven Hills neighborhood house.
Yes.
You see a lot of kids during your time span there. You basically have raised a lot of children in that community. I'm quite sure that there's been instances where you have gone to court and it's for somebody whose nose you just got through wiping, for the lack of a better metaphor.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
So what's that like?
I knew you'd ask me that. It doesn't feel good. And even more so it's when you have to be there with the family, especially the mothers. A single mother and her son is murdered. A friend or anyone. I mean, I've dealt with that so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a good feeling. And how do you bring that together and just make it right? Because there's a woman
So that's a good question.
who raised a son.
Right, and that's a great question because it's a segue into some of the other areas I like to tackle real quick with you, and that's what is it that we do? What do we do? What would you think would be? What road should we take to try to heal some of the pains? To get our communities back. What would you suggest?
I hate those guns.
Right. And that's great. And how do we get these off the street? Do we replace it? How do we replace them? And as a matter of fact, how do we replace them with jobs and education?
I think that's key. I think education is one of the biggest replacements that we can have in terms of, gun violence, drugs, assaults, robbery. Because if you're educated, then you can get a decent job. And if you get a decent job, that makes you feel good about yourself.
That's right.
Makes you feel good about your fellow man.
Right.
And if you feel good, then the people around you feel good.
Right. Half an hour is never long enough. So I really want to tackle this one question. And come on, I'm gonna keep it safe. So, have you yourself had any aspirations of possibly running for public office here in the city of Cincinnati?
No.
Really?
No, never, ever, ever, never.
Okay.
But I work behind the scenes. I volunteer for candidates, and I'm a good spokesperson for them. But I'm a behind the scenes type person. I really don't even like being on this show.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here. And although I can't use certain words and ask you who you're rooting for and that type of thing, one of the things that I've noticed in this election is that we have a lot of black women who are campaigning for positions in public service. What's your thoughts on women elevating themselves to that level?
It's about time.
It's about time. All right.
Well, we had Meet the Candidates night,
Right.
down at Seven Hills Neighborhood Houses. And we had, I think there were maybe 13 candidates there and 2 males, and the rest were females. And, you know, being a female, I was very glad to see them. And I, you know, I'm an advocate for women,
Right.
you know,
Right.
being
That's right.
equal
That's right.
opportunity.
That's right. One thing I know that you're an advocate of, and that's boxing. Just saw you at a couple of matches.
Yeah, all of
Boxing
them.
for Peace, the one that was in the park and also down on the square. You have a family member, I think. Do you have family ties with boxing?
No.
You don't? I thought you had a relative that boxed.
Friends.
A friend.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
Well, that's family in our culture.
Yeah, friends.
Yeah. So, and it seemed that was a good way for our youth to get out and really showcase their talents, as well as our community to come together to support our youth. You know, would you look to see more ventures of that nature?
I was so surprised and happy to see the boxing match down on Fountain Square. I couldn't believe that they would allow a boxing match
Right.
with our people down on Fountain Square, but they did. It was well taken care of. I mean, there was no violence. The crowd was wonderful.
Right. It was great.
Yes.
It was great.
And yes, I'm an advocate of boxing. because
Okay. That's
it's good
fantastic.
sport.
Let me ask you also real quickly. You mentioned trauma earlier, and I should have asked you this earlier. Trauma. We're seeing a trend where trauma centers and trauma units are coming up in neighborhoods. Are you all playing a part in developing those? Are you involved in conversation to develop more of those trauma centers?
Well, I didn't get a chance to finish, but Seven Hills Neighborhood House received the first grant in the state of Ohio to develop a trauma recovery center. So we're really working hard and gathering staff and meeting with hospital personnel and trauma centers around the city to help in the development of that. As a matter of fact, we have staff members that are going to, I believe, San Francisco next week.
Okay. So I know that you know Dr. Victor Garcia
Yes, I
and
do.
Ali Rashid. Hey, listen, we want to bring you back on. We want to bring you back on. We want to have a part 2 of this segment. We'll probably bring you back on with Pat McCullum and do some work here in this area. Listen, I'm Britton NewOne Carter, and this has been On the Line. And before I go, I just want to tell you, reach in that penny bank, go buy some kids some garments, drop them off, give them a Zion a call, give me a call. Let's get these kids something warm to wear. Peace. We out of here.
Thank you.